4 umpires. Surrounding one man. In the middle of a baseball field. In front of thousands of fans. After a home run. That image alone should tell you that something extraordinary happened. But what made this moment truly unforgettable wasn't just the inspection, it was everything that led up to it. The accusation. The confrontation. Ohtani's response. And what it all means for the biggest name in baseball right now. Shohei Ohtani had just crushed his 17th home run of the season. A towering blast that silenced the opposing crowd and sent the Dodgers' dugout into a frenzy. But before the celebration could even settle, something strange unfolded on that field. The opposing starting pitcher, still steaming from the mound, didn't just walk back to the dugout. He said something. He pointed. And within moments, 4 umpires were walking toward Ohtani, not to congratulate him, but to inspect him. His uniform. His gloves. Everything. What exactly was happening out there? And what did Ohtani demand in return? Let's break it all down. What did you make of the moment those 4 umpires walked toward Ohtani? What was your immediate reaction? Honestly, my first thought was disbelief. You don't see 4 umpires surround a single player like that very often in Major League Baseball. 1 umpire, sure, that's a routine check. But 4? That's a statement. That tells you the opposing team filed a formal complaint, and the umpires felt they had enough reason to act on it immediately. The fact that it happened right after Ohtani's 17th home run makes it even more dramatic. He hadn't done anything illegal at the plate. He swung, he connected, the ball left the park. And yet there he was, standing at home plate, while officials went through his equipment like it was a customs inspection. What I found most revealing was Ohtani's body language. He didn't flinch. He didn't panic. He stood there with complete composure, arms slightly spread, and let them do what they needed to do. That's not the reaction of a man who has something to hide. That's the reaction of a man who's been through scrutiny before and knows exactly how to handle it. Let's talk about the accusation itself. The opposing starting pitcher reportedly made a malicious accusation against Ohtani. How serious is this kind of thing in baseball? This is where things get really significant, because this wasn't a casual comment in the dugout. This was a pitcher making a formal accusation that triggered an on-field inspection. In baseball, that's a nuclear option. You're essentially telling the umpires, in front of everyone, that you believe the other team's superstar is cheating. The reputational stakes couldn't be higher, both for the accuser and the accused. Now, what exactly was the accusation? The details are still being pieced together, but from what we understand, the pitcher believed Ohtani had something on his batting gloves or uniform that was giving him an unfair advantage. In recent seasons, MLB has cracked down heavily on pitchers using foreign substances on the ball, but the rules apply to hitters too, in the sense that equipment must meet league standards and cannot be altered or treated with substances that affect performance. Whether the accusation had any merit is another question entirely. But the fact that it was made at all, against Ohtani, in that moment, after that home run, tells you how desperate opposing teams have become. When you can't get him out the legitimate way, apparently some are willing to try other methods. From a competitive perspective, what does it say about the impact Ohtani is having on opposing teams right now? It says everything. Think about it from the pitcher's point of view. You've just given up your opponent's 17th home run of the season to a man who is also one of the best pitchers in the league. You're not just losing a battle, you're losing to someone who makes everything look impossible to beat. That kind of pressure does strange things to people. The accusation, whether intentional or not, was also a tactical move. By triggering an inspection, the opposing team disrupted the Dodgers' momentum. They broke the rhythm of the game. They forced Ohtani to stand there and be examined while the crowd reacted. That's a form of psychological warfare. And honestly, it didn't work. Because Ohtani passed the inspection completely clean, and then, here's the part that matters, he didn't just move on quietly. Tell us about Ohtani's 2 demands. What did he actually say to the umpires? This is the moment that will stick with people. After the inspection concluded and the umpires found nothing, Ohtani made his feelings known directly. He spoke to the umpires clearly and firmly, and from reports on the field, he made two specific demands. First, he demanded a formal acknowledgement from the umpires that the inspection found nothing. Not just a dismissal of the complaint, but an official, public acknowledgement that he was cleared. In a sport where reputation is everything, this distinction matters enormously. Being inspected and being found clean are two different things, and Ohtani wanted that second part to be undeniable. Second, he demanded that the umpires address the conduct of the pitcher who made the accusation. This wasn't Ohtani asking for revenge, it was Ohtani protecting the integrity of the game. If a player can make an accusation that triggers a full four-umpire inspection and face zero consequences when that accusation turns out to be false, that sets a dangerous precedent. Any team could do it to any player at any moment to disrupt the flow of the game. Ohtani clearly understood that, and he wasn't going to let it slide. What struck me most was that Ohtani made these demands calmly but firmly. He wasn't screaming in rage, he was asserting himself with the authority of a man who knows exactly where he stands. That's a different kind of power, and it's just as impressive as anything he does with a bat or a ball. From a hitter's perspective, what does this entire episode say about how teams are approaching Ohtani right now? Honestly, it tells you that teams have run out of legitimate answers. Think about what happens when you face Ohtani at the plate. He's got a fastball that sits in the upper 90s. His sweeper breaks so sharply that even when you know it's coming, you can't square it up. And on days when his stuff isn't perfect, he adjusts mid-game and starts inducing weak contact. There's no comfort zone when you're pitching to him. Now add this, he just hit his 17th home run. He's doing this while also maintaining one of the best ERAs among starting pitchers in the league. The mental weight that puts on an opposing pitcher is staggering. You're not just trying to get a dangerous hitter out, you're trying to get a dangerous hitter out who happens to understand pitching at an elite level. He knows what you're trying to do before you do it. So what do you do when you genuinely can't stop him within the rules of the game? Apparently, some choose to look for another way. And that's exactly what made this accusation so telling. It wasn't a sign of Ohtani's guilt. It was a sign of his dominance. What impact does this kind of controversy have on Ohtani's legacy and his position in the MVP and Cy Young conversations? In the short term, it creates noise. People will talk about the inspection, about the accusation, about the confrontation. Some will try to use it to cast doubt. That's inevitable when you're the biggest name in any sport. But in the long term? This actually helps Ohtani's legacy more than it hurts it. Here's why. He was inspected by 4 umpires in front of a packed stadium and millions of viewers. The inspection was triggered by a formal accusation from an opposing pitcher. And he was cleared completely, officially, publicly. There is no asterisk on that home run. There is no question mark on his performance. If anything, the fact that teams feel the need to go to these lengths to stop him is the greatest possible testament to how good he actually is. The MVP conversation continues without interruption. The Cy Young race continues without interruption. And Ohtani's place at the center of both of them becomes even more cemented. What happens next? Is there any formal consequence expected for the pitcher who made the accusation? That's the part still unfolding. MLB typically investigates situations like this, particularly when a formal complaint triggers an on-field inspection that turns out to be unfounded. The league has to decide whether the accusation was made in good faith, meaning the pitcher genuinely believes something was wrong, or whether it was made as a deliberate tactic to disrupt the game. If it's determined to be the latter, the consequences could be significant. A fine, a suspension, or at the very least a formal reprimand that goes into the official record. Given that Ohtani specifically demanded that the umpires address the pitcher's conduct, MLB cannot simply ignore it and move on. What's certain is that this incident will add another layer to the Ohtani story this season. He's not just dominant on the field, he's now standing up for himself off it, demanding transparency and accountability from the officials who run the game. That's the behavior of a man who understands his position, his influence, and his responsibility to the sport. Right now, Shohei Ohtani is not just the best player in baseball. He is the most scrutinized, the most challenged, and the most tested. And every single time, whether the challenge comes from a 100 miles per hour fastball, a cheating allegation, or 4 umpires walking toward him on live television, he passes. That is what makes him different from everyone else.